I'm having one time with Monty Nefero, and I'm going to put him in a crossface, and he's going to go down right now. Yeah.
Now, are you a vegan? Is that why you went there?
I'm not one, no.
So
and I've
why would
already
they
used the
bring you-
bathroom in the restaurant, and there's a great chance that I'm going to use the bathroom here.
Well, so the question is why...
When I say here, I mean the couch.
Okay. Well,
And the inside of my pants,
oh, man.
and my boxers.
Welcome back to Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast. Monty DeFaro, only seen here out of Indie Music TV, out of Ronkonkoma, Long Island. Welcome, ECW legend, pro wrestling legend. Shall I call you Joel or Mr. Gertner?
To be called by you at all is an honor and a privilege. Wow. Hey, it's good to hear that Listeria Falls is still playing, by the way. Congratulate all of them. I go back with them. I was listening since they were Salmonella Sprinkler.
Oh, very good.
Yeah. You know what's interesting? The radio guest segment of my career in the last 25 or 30 years has really upped its game, because now when I do radio, it's on YouTube, and I'm on a couch. I've got my left boobie almost hanging out. I'm like one man breast away from doing net porn. What is this?
You should give a nip slip somewhere along this interview. You should just let it slip out a little bit for the fans out there.
Did you enable monetization? Because if so, I'd be more than happy to.
Oh, we've enabled it. In fact, we've got some fans out there looking to give a few things for a nip slip if you're willing to send it that way.
What about that filmmaker that called about that erotic hardcore porn film he wants to do regarding his chest, Lawnmower Man?
Oh.
I mean, come on. This
Hey,
is
now.
gold just waiting to happen.
Speaking of the lawn, so my friends here, my promoter friends, led by Bobby Extreme, they took me out for dinner to a vegan restaurant.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh.
My digestive metabolism right now is kicking like kung fu. So,
Where did you
I may
go?
need to-
I'd like to know what
The
vegan
bathroom's
place.
right
Bobby,
there.
where'd we go? Three brothers.
Three brothers.
Three brothers.
And you felt safe having Mo, Larry, and Curly serve you food?
It tasted like three brothers, two sisters, and a tree, a really, really big tree. Everything was made out of vegetables, except the vegetables were made out of tofu and seitan.
Now, are you a vegan? Is that why you went there?
I'm not one, no.
So
And I've
why would
already
they
used
bring
the
you-
bathroom in the restaurant, and there's a great chance that I'm going to use the bathroom here.
Well, so the question is why...
When I say here, I mean the couch.
Okay, well,
And the inside of my pants,
oh, man.
and my boxers. Don't worry. Like everything else, it smells like dulce de leche. You'll be fine.
Oh, Matt, we have baby wipes in the studio to wipe down the couch afterwards.
Yeah, it's in the closet.
Excellent. You're
My
always
bodily
prepared.
fluids pass in the third world for ice cream.
Nice.
You'll
Very
be
good.
fine.
Unfortunately, New Jack has left us, and he was one of my favorite guests on the show. We've had him on several times. Of course, his departure, to me, was a shock. I don't know why, but to me, I was very, very shocked. Do you have some memories for us? You know,
Yeah. Oh, God. New Jack was my food buddy. And we would, when we were on the road, we would, if we weren't eating together, maybe he would go to a certain spot before the show, like for a late lunch, whatever, and he'd bring back food for me. He would tell me about places to try. We got along great. But the memory that stands out is he did an indie show in Brooklyn 2 or 3 years ago, not far from where my grandmother lived. But my grandmother at the time was in a nursing home or in rehab. And I think at this point she was probably in hospice care already. And so New Jack worked the show. I was there. It wasn't too far from where I lived. And I popped in, said hey, and we went out to dinner at a sushi place later that night. And the sushi place is right by my grandmother's house, which she hadn't been in a year or two because she'd been in the hospital, rehab, hospice. So after we ate, I asked Jack, I was like, Jack, if you wouldn't mind, if it's cool, can I take a picture of you outside this sushi place? And the intention was I was going to show it to my grandmother to get a pop out of her, because every other time she's seen an image of New Jack is when it was on TNN and him jumping off the balcony and putting me through a table. So I take the picture, I show it to her, and she smiles and she laughs because it's like worlds colliding. What was this guy that I've seen on national television doing a block from my home where you and I go to eat sushi all the time? So she smiled and she laughed, and she passed away 3 weeks after that. And it was pretty much the last time maybe that she ever, that I ever got, you know, a smile and a laugh out of her. So I've got the picture of New Jack outside the sushi place. I've got it in the camera roll on my phone. And, God, man, he was just, he was real people. You know what I mean? He was, he lived his worldview, and he was who he was, and he was unapologetic. And if you were somebody that he didn't like, then you wouldn't have liked him, because if he didn't like you, he wasn't going to sugarcoat it and put a filter and that kind of thing. But if you were like family to him, if you were somebody who he allowed into his like inner circle, then you couldn't have a more loyal friend in the world.
What would you describe his legacy as? Do you believe that he's in the penthouse of the greatest of the great hardcore wrestlers? Because to me, he's a measuring stick.
Yeah, I think so. I think the number of times he's been emulated by you know, students at wrestling schools who are, you know, taking bookings and doing their own first hardcore matches and just up and down the independent circuit, like no matter where you are in the country, no matter where you are really in the world, I think there are so many people trying to be what New Jack was, just kind of have that same flavor, that same kind of spirit or vibe. And he really was one of a kind. He really was. I mean, the same way Brody was one of a kind.
Sure.
Is, you know, there might be people in the decades to follow that remind you of New Jack, but they're not gonna be exactly who or what he was, because he just, you can't cast a New Jack. You know what I mean?
Thoughts on Nick Gage?
I think his career is exploding. Right? I mean, what if Nostradamus would have put in chapter 1147 that Nick Gage would be a Domino's Pizza spokesman, and we'd all have a nice laugh over that. But I mean, in a way, that's kind of what happened on Twitter this week, right? I mean, kudos to him. You know, also very real, also salt of the earth, also, I don't know him personally, I haven't met him, but I like what I see, you know what I mean? In the sense that he is true to who he is,
right?
And I think he's also probably going to spawn a lot of imitators, especially now that he's proven that he's gone from what people thought was just kind of niche, and he's now taken it to the mainstream because of how not mainstream he is.
Right.
You know, he's almost like, you know, you'd never expect him to succeed.
Right.
So it's almost like, you know, in a certain way, he's succeeding in spite of what or who he is. And I think there's a certain glory in that you can't get by just succeeding if you were meant to be and lined up to be a success.
The infamous leap off the balcony. There you are. He's coming down. Are you scared at that moment, or are you trusting because it's New Jack and you feel safe? I mean, what goes through the victim's mind? Sure, the viewer at home gets to enjoy the whole spectacle, but what about the poor guy on the table? I mean,
All
what's
of
going
it.
through your mind during that?
All of it. It all goes through your mind, and because it's all going through your mind and it's so quick, it's perfect because none of it's going through your mind. Because if
Right.
it's all going through your mind at once, then you don't really get to dwell on any of it. But so on the one side, it's I'm not a physical guy, I'm not an athlete, I'm not trained as a wrestler. I'm gonna f this up, fudge this up.
gonna die.
I caught myself, right? I was gonna say fudge this up.
You can say F this up. It's
Oh yeah, so I'm gonna f this up, or like
there you go.
you know what I mean? There's all that, like, you know, and then on the other hand, like you said, it's, well, this is New Jack.
Right.
I've seen other people take this spot and be fine. It's gonna be quick. This too shall pass. There's nothing to worry about. And you've got kind of, you know, 5 or 10 Debbie Downerisms running through your head, and you've
Right.
got 5 or 10 motivationalisms. But you know, you're only on the table for about 10, 15. You know what I mean? So
Right. And
So
oddly
it
enough,
all
New
does and
Jack
none of it
is-
does.
No, oddly enough, New Jack is the one who usually would get more hurt than the guy on the table.
some of, man, I mean.
My God.
It was getting to be like 20, 30 feet, like jumping out of
Right.
like the third floor of an apartment. Once
Right.
you're at 30 feet, I mean, think about it. It's like jumping out the third floor of an apartment building.
Did you fear for his safety? Did you ever talk to him and say, Jack, these leaps are getting higher and higher? I mean, like, you know, you might want to. Did you ever give him that sort of advice, or who would dare to give him that sort of advice?
Yeah.
Perhaps. Okay.
No, not me. No.
Okay, you were known as the quintessential stud muffin, which I absolutely love. Did you come up with that yourself, or
No.
no? Is that Paul?
I did not. I came up with 99% of the limericks, of the
Okay.
Gertnerisms.
Okay.
But well, I think was Paul's.
Love it. It's great.
It's classic.
great.
It's throwback. It's everything, and it's also he's a big like cartoon guy, like Bugs Bunny, Warner Brothers, and it just harkens to like that type of heelish, you know. So well, you know, goes back to the beginning of television, the beginning of time.
Sure.
So that was Paul's, and quintessential stud muffin was Paul's,
Right.
as an homage to Austin Idol, who he managed early on in his career in the
wow.
late '80s in the territories,
Okay.
who was the universal heartthrob.
Sure. That guy was. I sometimes wonder why he didn't get bigger. That guy was pretty fantastic.
Yeah, he should have had a run in the 80s. and
Joel,
everything.
how does it start for you with pro wrestling? I mean, how do you get into it in the first place?
I was a big fan, and I started getting newsletters,
Okay.
listening to radio shows like this one.
Newsletters from Paul by any chance? Because Paul had a newsletter, didn't he, back in the early days?
He was a fan club president, I think. Yeah.
Okay,
Um,
okay.
I was getting the Observer, Dave Meltzer.
Okay. Boo.
I was getting.
Wait. Boo. Okay, next.
And then there was a woman named Georgianne Macropolis who was doing the Wrestling Chatterbox. She was former Bruno Sammartino fan club president. And, yeah, gosh, I was listening to radio shows, getting newsletters, and there was a school on the Lower East Side in the city, and I was around 16. And I said, well, you know, I think I can do this, so let's see if there's anything there that I can do that they need, you know. I took 1 or 2 wrestling classes, knowing that that's not where my bread was buttered, knowing that, 'cause again, I'm not an athlete. I knew that that wasn't going to be my contribution to the industry.
Okay.
But it was nice to learn how to take a back bump, and it was nice to learn how to run the ropes, because you get respect for the business. I mean, and I already had respect for the business, but running the ropes is a chore. You know what I mean? It's not easy. It stings, it leaves marks, it leaves welts, and until your body is conditioned for it, even running the ropes is painful. So
Really?
that taking back bumps allowed me to where now I can do color commentary. And I can say, hey, you know, you who just saw Sabu at age 50 do what he did, thinking at 25 years old that you could probably do that if you just know. And I go into how, you know, running the ropes will take its toll on you.
Sure.
You know, taking back bumps over and over again is, you know, most doctors would consider that to be a similar level of trauma to a car accident. You know what I mean? Like wrestling a 15-minute wrestling match is the equivalent of being in a minor car accident. So, yeah, I mean, you know, I'm glad I took those classes. But again, with no pressure, because I knew that my goal wasn't to be the next, you know, whoever wrestles that I admire, any of the heels or freakazoid wrestlers that I loved. You know, my goal wasn't to be Jake the Snake Roberts. My goal wasn't to be the Missing Link. My goal, I loved those guys, but my goal was to be, you know, Jimmy Hart
Bobby
Lou
the Brain.
Albano, Freddie Blassie,
Right.
Paul Heyman, Jim Cornette. My goal, and I did a lot of ring announcing, and I still do. My goal was to be Howard Finkel. My goal was to be people like that. But I knew I wasn't going to be a full-time wrestler, so it was fun and meaningful and productive.
So what did your parents say about that, though, that you wanted to get into professional wrestling? Because you have a degree from Cornell, am I right?
I dropped out of Cornell to pursue ECW. Yeah. So I wound up getting a degree at Brooklyn College down the line.
Okay.
But yeah, they just weren't into it.
How did you wind up in ECW? How does that happen?
So I did about 4 years on the indies, a couple of years while I was in high school, a couple of years while I was in college.
Okay.
So 16 to 20. And then around my 20th birthday, like maybe a month before it, I was in Philly. I was at an ECW show. I was hanging out with my crew of people, and we were at the Travelodge, the celebrated Cylinder of Sin, the Travelodge, and we were hanging out in the lobby at the bar, and I saw Paul Heyman came into the hotel, and he had pushed the button, and he was waiting for the elevator, and I gave an elevator. I didn't know at the time what an elevator pitch was,
Okay.
but I gave him one.
You did.
Okay. I said to myself, look, the answer's no now. You know what I mean? Like, just open your mouth and introduce yourself to this guy and ask for what you want, because he's going to say no anyway. So at least know that he says no. Don't not do it and then find yourself in a position where you're like, I wonder, even though it's a 1 in 1,000 chance,
Right.
what if I would have asked him?
Right.
I'd rather regret asking him, which wouldn't have been a regret anyway, because like I said, the answer's no until you've asked. So I went up to him. I said, I've been a big fan I've been an admirer of your work. I've followed your career. I told him about a mutual friend, Stephen DeAngelis, an ECW ring announcer. I had a mutual friend, so I don't know if that helped or it didn't matter. But I said, I'm up at Cornell University, and you guys are coming to Middletown. And I do ring announcing, managing, that kind of thing. I know that your ring announcing crew is based in Philadelphia. So I don't know if they're going to be in Middletown or if you'd be in need of somebody anyway. And if you were, then I just wanted to volunteer my services and just audition and show you what it is that I could do. Whatever I said just happened to be, it was like throwing refrigerator word magnets at the refrigerator door, but in the right order, I guess. Because it must have been, he must have seen something in what I said, nervous as I was, that he just kind of, I don't know if he thought he was looking in a mirror. That's probably me putting myself over too much. Or whether he thought he was looking at somebody that had 7 heads. But he just kind of stared at me for a moment, and he was like, you want it? Well, I've come this far, right? So I'm like, yeah. He's like, you got it. Be there by 5.
Wow.
And be there by 5 turned into 5 1/4 years.
Joe, let's break into one of my, well, they probably really are my favorite tag team outside of Demolition, the amazing Dudley Boys. Tell me about your experiences working with the great Dudley Boys.
Yeah, it was just an amazing time. Because all of us in ECW, it was like our first big break, and we all hadn't been anywhere else yet. And so it was just special, the family vibe. It was just special. And with the Dudleys, with however many there were, and for how long it lasted, it was almost the closest thing we had to the NWO. It was a tag team that was kind of like a faction or a stable. And it was, whether we had the belts or whether we were chasing for the belts, it's something that lasted a good 2 years, probably closer to 3 years. And it was a blast to work with them, and they were both so devoted and disciplined and dedicated and all of us were just looking to advance our careers and also do what we could for the advancement of ECW itself. And, just a really, really special time. And the dynamic was interesting working with the Dudleys because it's kind of a good cop, bad cop kind of thing. with Devon kind of being the good cop. And as you can, and
So let me ask you,
surprise.
what kind of relationship did you have with Bubba Ray Dudley, right, or Bully Ray, whatever, right? So we're kind of in competition with them, right? We're all looking for that same audience. And
He's got a show? Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
He's
he
got a
does.
show. Yeah, go on.
But look,
Go on.
as an outsider looking in, this guy always seems like he thinks he knows everything, and he's always trying to put himself over. Like, was he like that with you? I mean, what was that all about?
Bubba, so when you ask, was Bubba that way with me? No, because even though it was not in my character to speak up necessarily, there was one instance where I kind of nipped in the bud where, if I would have heard it from Paul, it would have been gospel because he pays the bills and he gave me my shot.
Right.
But I didn't hear it from Paul. I heard it from Bubba, who suggested to me that maybe I should, and if it's done the right way, I'm all for getting heat. Like I knew that so there was one time where Paul pulled me aside. I think he saw that I was acting a little bit too tweenerish. Maybe I slapped somebody's hand. I did something that was a little, this pre-TNN, so I was with the Dudleys in the meat and the heart of the heat of trying to incite riots and all that, and get the Dudleys the Dudley heat. And Paul, when I came to the back after working, Paul said, "You're worth $1 million to me as a heel. Right now, you are worth nothing to me as a babyface." And I understood what that meant, and it was wise, and it meant a lot, and I put it in my back pocket, and it meant something, and I learned from it. Bubba one night said, maybe you should, because people were starting to get off on the Gertnerisms, and the Gertnerisms were starting to get longer, right? Another line here, another verse
They
there.
were great, though.
And
I loved
Bubba
them.
was like, how about maybe you should go out there and be like, well, it is I, Joel, you suck, Gertner. Or Joel, I rock. Like, it was, like, in other words, sabotage my own moneymaker.
Right.
And intentionally, you know what I mean? Like,
So he sees you taking off and he wants to neuter your gimmick. That's what it
I-
feels
but
like.
you-
I'm not
and it-
asking
and it
you
could-
to
and
say
it-
that,
and
but
it
that's
could
how
have
it feels
been-
to me. What the hell's that?
well,
Seems in line.
you know,
Well, Bubba.
you know what? Done similarly but different,
Okay.
it could have worked.
Okay.
But the
Okay.
way he recommended it, I felt did not work.
Right.
So I kind of, to show him how I thought it wasn't appropriate, I said, Bubba, wouldn't this, so you're a wrestler, right? I'm the talker, but you're the wrestler.
Right.
Wouldn't this be akin to, you go out, after I've done that, now you're out there 3 minutes in, and you're working the match, and because all these people paid their ticket money to see you wrestle as well as you can and try to win the match, you throw a drop kick to somebody's shins.
Sure.
Right.
And that kind of nipped it in the bud.
Right.
And from that point forward, Bubba wasn't quite that way.
I absolutely loved ECW. What was it like being part of that whole group? Did you know at the time what we're doing is going to be talked about for decades and decades? Was it like that? Or, I mean, what was it like to be part of such a special, amazing group and that no one else was like?
No,
all
thank you for
original.
that. We I think we all knew that we were on a rocket ship. I think we all knew that. I think, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we all knew that we were chosen, and for those of us who had to make a choice to be put, like I'd left school. A lot of other people made, their own personal decisions that they needed to make to be able to be on the road 2, 3, 4 days a week in a row. And I think we knew, but it because we were always the number 3 horse in a 3-horse race, we never had that view that the horse in front has Probably, thank goodness. It probably would have killed us. And here's me and Bob Backlund, and Bob Backlund's like, what do you think about the bit? I hardly know him, right? We just met.
Oh, you're marking out, by the way, that it's
Huge.
Bob Backlund? There we go.
I'm trying to think of Bob
He's
Backlund
walking
and
out.
ECW too. By the way,
I know.
It's
I'm,
like what?
I'm trying to picture that, too. How did they talk him into this? But okay.
That's right. We're all
okay.
in the same company. We had him in studio. We were like, it was like the president was sitting
I'm
in
telling
studio.
you.
He's a force of nature, man.
Yes.
That man did not disappoint either. He is Bob Backlund.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my
all
God.
day, every day. Yeah.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so he asked you if you were impressed with the building.
He asked me, he's like, what do you think about the building? I'm like, yeah, it's great. He's like, think about it for TV. I'm like, yeah, it's unbelievable. I remember I used to come to TV tapings here. The building holds 2,200, but when you put 4 cameras and a crane for WWE TV, it looks like it holds 10,000. I'm talking to him. He's like, I agree. He's like, wouldn't you say that this is the quintessential building to tape television in? And I didn't know whether to piss or I didn't know, like, you know what I mean? Because I'm. He's saying quintessential to me. Locker room of this building, and I'm like, does he know what my nickname is? Does he not know? If he knows, is this like I was like a deer in headlights. I was like, I didn't know what to say. Yeah,
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you feel Paul left you guys in a lurch? A lot of you guys when he went to the WWF or WWE, knowing your talents and knowing you, and obviously the Dudley boys did well over there. I mean,
And you helped him get
yeah,
to where
to
he
get where
got.
you think that he just left you guys and just left you stranded after all you did for him
Boy,
personally.
That's tough.
I don't think that because I mean, I know as much as the next person. You know what I mean? When it comes to late 2000, early 2001, how exactly really did things play out? Why exactly really did they play out that way? Who personally made certain decisions that they needed to make, could have not made? Like, you know, it's a butterfly. You'll drive yourself crazy.
Sure.
For me to think badly of him, and as the person who always gave me creative control, creative license, creative leeway, gave me my break, gave me a nickname that was an homage to Austin Idol, who he worked with, gave me a co-host and color commentator spot on the TNN show, which is what he had in WCW.
Right.
So he couldn't do it in his own company,
Right.
and I'm the one he chose. For him to put me opposite Rick Rude, point counterpoint, and put me on Rude's level, when that's another person that was very influential along his journey, I can't, I would never be the one to say that he even left me or the company in the lurch, because without any conclusive proof that that's the case, I would have to, again, think poorly of him personally.
So do you look at
and
it,
I don't.
Do you just look at it this way, that this guy gave me the opportunity, he gave me a great 5 years, and I should be satisfied with that?
From him.
Yeah.
I should be I mean, the moment he let me in the door, look, you don't choose pro wrestling chooses you.
Sure.
So the moment I was allowed to be part of the family, he owed me nothing. He didn't owe me that.